The crystal glasses clinked as my cousin Marcus raised his fourth toast of the evening. "To Sullivan Enterprises," he announced, his voice carrying across the expensive restaurant. "Soon to be the largest real estate development company in the Northeast." I sat quietly at the far end of the table, nursing my single glass of wine, watching my family celebrate their supposed success. The annual Sullivan family dinner was always a competition of achievements, and as usual, I was expected to be nothing more than an audience member. "Sarah," Aunt Margaret's voice dripped with false concern as she turned to me. "Still running that little shop downtown? What do you call it again?" "Riverside Books." "That's right," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. No need to mention that Riverside Books was just the public face of my real business empire. Let them think I spent my days dusting shelves and recommending novels to retired schoolteachers. "Such a shame," my other cousin Victoria chimed in, adjusting her Cartier bracelet. "You had so much potential. Remember when you graduated top of your class at Wharton? Now look at Marcus, he's handling billion-dollar developments while you're still, what was it? Organizing reading circles." The family erupted in poorly concealed laughter. I took another sip of wine, thinking about the documents sitting on my desk at Sterling Financial Group. Documents that would soon wipe those smug smiles off their faces. 10 years ago, when I graduated from Wharton, everyone expected me to join Sullivan Enterprises. It was the family tradition. Work your way up through the ranks, prove your loyalty, maybe in 20 years you'd get a senior position. That is, if you were male. Female Sullivans were expected to take ceremonial board positions and marry strategic business partners. Instead, I took my inheritance, a modest sum compared to my cousin's trust funds, and bought a struggling bookstore in downtown Boston. My family was horrified. Uncle Richard, Marcus's father and CEO of Sullivan Enterprises, called it a childish rebellion. Aunt Margaret suggested I was having a mental breakdown. What they didn't know was that Riverside Books was just the beginning. While they watched me waste my potential, ordering inventory and hosting local authors, I was building something much bigger. Sterling Financial Group started small, private equity investments, strategic acquisitions, carefully chosen real estate deals. I operated under my mother's maiden name, Mason, keeping the Sullivan connection hidden. Year after year, I sat through family dinners listening to them brag about Sullivan Enterprises' latest conquests. Marcus would boast about his aggressive expansion plans, taking on massive loans to fund increasingly risky developments. Victoria would detail her husband's latest merger, each deal more leveraged than the last. I saw the warning signs long before anyone else. Sullivan Enterprises was overextended, their projects too ambitious, their debt too high. When the real estate market showed the first signs of softening, I knew it was only a matter of time. Speaking of business, Marcus announced, drawing my attention back to the present. "We're about to break ground on our biggest project yet. The Sullivan Tower, 50 stories of luxury condos and high-end retail in downtown Manhattan." "Fascinating," I murmured, thinking about the market analysis on my desk showing downtown Manhattan's luxury real estate prices dropping by 30%. "Of course," Victoria added, "we're working with all the top banks. Everyone wants a piece of Sullivan Enterprises." I suppressed a smile. What they didn't know was that Sterling Financial Group had been quietly buying up Sullivan Enterprises' debt for the past 3 years. Through a network of subsidiary companies, I now controlled a significant portion of their loans. "How much is the project worth?" I asked innocently. $2 billion, Marcus declared proudly. "The largest development in Sullivan history." "And the financing?" "All arranged through Eastern Atlantic Bank." He waved his hand dismissively. "They're practically begging to work with us." I nodded, not mentioning that Sterling Financial Group had acquired a controlling interest in Eastern Atlantic Bank 6 months ago. The same bank that was about to call in Sullivan Enterprises loans. "Enough about boring business," Aunt Margaret interrupted. "Sarah, dear, isn't it time you thought about settling down? That bookstore can't keep you warm at night." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from my CFO, market analysis confirmed. Sullivan Tower pre-sales at 15% of projections. Their cash reserves won't cover next month's loan payments. "Actually," I said, standing up, "I should head out. Early day tomorrow." "Oh right," Marcus laughed. "Got to open the shop bright and early." Wouldn't want your loyal customers to miss their morning romance novels. The family joined in his laughter. I smiled, picked up my purse and walked out of the restaurant. Let them laugh. In exactly 1 week, Sullivan Enterprises would discover they were on the brink of bankruptcy, and their only hope for survival would be a bailout from Sterling Financial Group. I spent the next week preparing. My team gathered every piece of financial data, every overdue payment, every risky investment Sullivan Enterprises had made. The numbers were worse than even I had anticipated. They had leveraged everything on the Sullivan Tower project, and with pre-sales falling far below projections, they were about to hit a wall. The call came exactly as I predicted. My private line rang at 9:47 a.m., displaying Uncle Richard's number. Sarah. His voice had lost its usual arrogance. I need a favor. I know you're good with numbers and, well, we're having some cash flow issues. Would you look over some documents for me? I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the moment. Cash flow issues? Nothing serious, he said quickly. Just a temporary situation. The Sullivan Tower project is taking longer to generate revenue than expected. We just need someone with fresh eyes to review our options. I see, I replied. And why come to me? I'm just a bookstore owner, remember? The silence on the other end was telling. Finally he sighed. Is your family, Sarah? And right now we need family we can trust. I closed my eyes, remembering every dismissive comment, every condescending smile, every time they had treated me like a failure. I'll look at your documents, Uncle Richard. Send them over. An hour later, my assistant delivered a thick folder of financial statements, loan documents and project reports. Everything confirmed what I already knew. Sullivan Enterprises was drowning in debt, and the Sullivan Tower project was about to pull them under. That evening I received another call, this time from Marcus. His voice was frantic, all traces of arrogance gone. Sarah, please tell me you've looked at those documents. The bank, they're calling in our loans. All of them. We need help. I smiled, thinking of the meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Don't worry, cousin. I'm sure everything will work out exactly as it should. The next morning I arrived at Eastern Atlantic Bank's downtown headquarters precisely at 8:30 a.m. Not as Sarah Sullivan, the bookstore owner they mocked, but as Sarah Mason, CEO of Sterling Financial Group and majority shareholder of the bank that held their fate in its hands. The executive conference room offered a panoramic view of the city, including the half-finished Sullivan Tower rising like a skeleton against the morning sky. My team was already assembled: lawyers, financial advisors, and board members who had helped me build Sterling Financial Group from nothing. They're here, my assistant Emma whispered, handing me a fresh cup of coffee. In the lobby. Mr. Sullivan seems agitated. I smiled, remembering Uncle Richard's legendary temper. Let them wait 15 minutes. Some lessons require perfect timing. At precisely 9 a.m. the Sullivan contingent was escorted in. Uncle Richard led the way, his usual commanding presence diminished by dark circles under his eyes. Marcus followed, looking rumpled in yesterday's suit. Victoria brought up the rear, her designer outfit and perfect makeup a desperate attempt to maintain appearances. They stopped dead when they saw me sitting at the head of the table. Sarah. Marcus's voice cracked. What are you doing here? I gestured to the chairs. Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss. This must be some mistake, Uncle Richard blustered, though his face had gone pale. We're here to meet with Sarah Mason, the CEO of Sterling Financial Group. Yes, I said calmly, you are. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat. You're Sarah Mason? Among other things. I opened the folder in front of me. Shall we review your situation? Sullivan Enterprises is currently carrying $3.2 billion in debt, with the Sullivan Tower project requiring another $800 million to complete. Your pre-sales are at 15% of projections, and you've missed your last 2 loan payments. Uncle Richard sank into a chair. How did you know all this? I finished for him. I've been watching Sullivan Enterprises for years. Every risky investment, every over-leveraged project, every arrogant decision based on the assumption that the Sullivan name made you untouchable. Marcus leaned forward, his face flushed. So what, this is revenge? You've been planning this all along? No, Marcus. This is business. I pressed a button and financial projections appeared on the screen behind me. Sullivan Enterprises is failing because of your mismanagement, not my planning. I'm simply here to offer a solution. We don't need your help, Victoria snapped, but her voice trembled. We'll find other financing. I raised an eyebrow. Will you? Eastern Atlantic Bank is calling in its loans. Without an immediate cash injection of at least $500 million, Sullivan Enterprises will be forced to declare bankruptcy by the end of the week. You can't do this, Uncle Richard whispered. We're family. Family. I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Was I family when you mockingly asked about my little bookstore at every holiday dinner? Was I family when you told potential investors not to waste their time on my hobby business? Was I family when you warned Marcus not to help me because I was just a shopkeeper playing at business? Silence fell over the room. Even my team seemed to hold their breath. What do you want? Uncle Richard finally asked, his voice heavy with defeat. I slid 3 folders across the table. Sterling Financial Group is prepared to provide emergency financing to prevent immediate bankruptcy. In exchange, we'll take a controlling interest in Sullivan Enterprises. You'll retain your positions as minority shareholders, but operational control will transfer to us immediately. Marcus flipped through the documents, his hands shaking. You're taking everything. No, I corrected him. I'm saving everything. Without this deal, Sullivan Enterprises dies and the Sullivan name becomes synonymous with failure. Your choice. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. All this time while we thought you were just running that silly bookstore. I was building an empire, I finished for her. One that doesn't rely on the Sullivan name or family connections. Everything I've achieved, I've earned through hard work and smart decisions, 2 concepts you might want to familiarize yourselves with. The next hour passed in tense silence as they reviewed the documents with their lawyers. I watched them slowly realize the full scope of their situation, and my success. Sterling Financial Group wasn't just some small investment firm. It was a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse that had been quietly growing while they were too busy mocking my bookstore to notice. Finally, Uncle Richard picked up his pen. We don't have a choice, do we? You always have a choice, I replied. Just like I had a choice 10 years ago when you all thought I was throwing my life away. I chose to build something of my own instead of playing by your rules. Now you can choose to either save what's left of Sullivan Enterprises or watch it crumble completely. One by one they signed the documents. With each signature, generations of Sullivan arrogance crumbled a little more. As they stood to leave, Marcus paused. The bookstore. Was any of it real? I smiled. Riverside Books is very real. It's profitable, brings joy to the community, and reminds me daily that success isn't always about having the biggest tower or the most impressive title. Sometimes it's about building something genuine, something that matters. After they left, Emma brought in a fresh cup of coffee. Congratulations, Ms. Mason. Or should I say Ms. Sullivan? I shook my head. Mason is fine. The Sullivan name doesn't mean what it used to. Over the next few months, Sullivan Enterprises underwent a complete transformation. The Sullivan Tower project was redesigned into a more sustainable mixed-use development. Over-leveraged assets were sold off and risky investments were restructured. Under Sterling Financial Group's management, the company slowly began to recover. My family's reaction to the takeover varied. Uncle Richard took early retirement, unable to face the reality of his diminished role. Victoria threw herself into charity work, carefully avoiding any events where she might run into me. Marcus, surprisingly, showed genuine interest in learning proper business management, though it would be years before he earned any real responsibility. The annual Sullivan family dinner the following year was a notably different affair. Gone were the boastful toasts and competitive achievements. Instead, there was a quiet acknowledgement that perhaps they had underestimated the quiet cousin with the bookstore. Aunt Margaret approached me during dessert, her usual condescension replaced with something close to respect. I never understood why you bought that bookstore, she admitted. Now I realize we were the ones who couldn't see the bigger picture. I sipped my wine, thinking of the small shop downtown where I still spent Saturday mornings helping customers find their next favorite book. The bigger picture isn't always about size or power, Aunt Margaret. Sometimes it's about building something meaningful whether others understand it or not. Late that night I walked into Riverside Books, breathing in the familiar scent of paper and possibility. The shop was closed, but light spilled from my small office in the back where I often worked on Sterling Financial Group business. On my desk, next to reports about billion-dollar acquisitions and market analyses, sat a well-worn copy of my favorite childhood book, a story about a young girl who dreamed bigger than anyone thought possible. I ran my fingers along the spines of nearby books, remembering how my family had laughed when I bought this place. They never understood that Riverside Books wasn't just a cover story or a hobby. It was a reminder that success comes in many forms, and the loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. My phone buzzed with a message from Emma. Sullivan Tower redesign approved by City Council. Construction resumes next week. I smiled, settling into my favorite reading chair by the window. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, each one a reminder of the empire I'd built while my family was too busy mocking my tiny shop to notice. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your critics. It's about succeeding so completely that their criticism becomes irrelevant. The next morning I opened the shop as usual, helping a young girl find a book about a businesswoman who changed the world. As I watched her eyes light up with possibilities, I thought about legacy and success, and how sometimes the smallest dreams lead to the biggest victories. Let my family keep their Sullivan name. I built something better. An empire founded not on arrogance and tradition, but on hard work and genuine value. And unlike Sullivan Tower, that's something that can never be mortgaged or lost. The best part? I still get to spend my Saturdays recommending books to retired school teachers. After all, some successes can't be measured in dollars and cents.